Hello everyone, it's Seti, and today we're talking about silver. So let's get right into it. Who is buying silver right now? What does the market share of silver look like? Well, let me turn you guys around like I always do, and let's get straight into it. So, who buys silver? That's the question we want to know about. Well, silver has a bunch of industrial uses, and actually 52% of all silver is used for industrial uses. 20% goes to making jewelry, 22% goes to making silver coins and bars, and 6% goes to silverware. So that's like forks, knives, stuff like that. Whereas, as opposed to gold, gold only has 10% industrial use. So remember, silver 52% for industry uses, while gold only 10%. Meanwhile, gold has 50% going to jewelry versus 20% for silver, and 40% of gold going into investments, right? You can maybe count it as equivalent to silver coins and bars, but also not really. So, what's the conclusion you have to draw from this? Well, the conclusion is right here. So, because silver has so many more industrial uses, that means that when the economy is doing well and more just businesses are selling stuff in general, that means that the demand for silver goes up, whereas gold is a lot less dependent on just pure economic growth and actually the industries of the countries continuing to do better. So let's talk then about what exactly I mean with industrial applications, right? So this is just basically when you're actually using the metal to serve a purpose, right? So if you're just buying a gold bar just to hold a gold bar, that doesn't actually do anything. Meanwhile, if you're putting gold in a chip because it's the only element on the periodic table that can actually do what you need it to do inside the chip, that would be an industrial application. So let's talk about why industry likes silver. Well, silver has one of the highest, actually the highest electricity and heat conductivity out of any element. It used to be huge in the photography industry because it was very sensitive to light. So if you mix silver with specific salts, so you make specific like silver salt, and with salt, I'm not talking about table salt, but like what you would call salt in chemistry. Well, back then, pretty much all the photographic film actually had like the silver salt substance over it. And when you took a picture, the light would come in for a couple of seconds or fractions of a second. It would hit this, the film would react with the light, and that's actually how you would generate a picture. Well, as we all know, analog photography is declining, so now this only makes up 3% of silver's industrial applications. Meanwhile, solar panels is now the biggest one, and as well, it's the highest growth one out of all of these, and it's currently at 10%. Lower down, I'm going to talk about Biden, so just hold on for that. And let me just speed run us through the list here of the other applications they have. It has antibacterial properties, soldering and brazing alloys. It's used in batteries, in dentistry, glass coatings, LED chips, medicine, nuclear reactors, RFID chips, semiconductors, touchscreens, water purification, and wood preservatives. So these are a lot of applications for one material. Anyway, people are pretty ingenious when it comes to that kind of stuff. So which countries are the largest buyers of this stuff? Well, we've got the US, Canada, China, India, Japan, South Korea, Germany, and Russia. None of these economies are slouches. These are some of the biggest economies in the world. So anytime that these guys are buying something, you should pay attention, right? The point is that this is a huge industry. People are not just valuing silver based on what they think it's going to be worth in a couple of years like they do predominantly with gold. Silver actually has useful applications. Let's move on. Let's talk about how exactly silver is mined, right? Because silver being mined has a direct effect on the supply of silver. So how is it mined? Well, the total annual silver supply hovers around 1,000 million ounces. 82% comes from mining and 17% from recycling. So let's now talk about more the mining. So most silver is actually produced as a byproduct when you refine copper, gold, lead, and zinc. That means that most silver is not directly mined for, it just comes while you're mining the other stuff. If you want to know how much comes directly from pure silver mines, that's only 29% of the global silver production. So usually when you have something that's being mined, the direct mines that actually go out and seek this material account for most of the global production, and that's not the case with silver. That's interesting. So to show you just how fragmented the global silver production is, the 15 largest silver mines combined only accounted for 27% of the global silver output. So usually in an industry, you would have like 2, 3, if it's a nice industry, hopefully 5 large players that account for most of the market. In this case, the top 15 guys only account for 27%. So that means that no one really has a direct monopoly on silver, which is great because it means that market forces are a huge influencer on silver. So how big is the silver industry? Well, the total dollar value was 16 billion in 2019. 16 billion. And to give you an idea compared to gold, well, gold accounts for 210 billion. And with this 16 billion and 210 billion, I'm talking about how much was mined in 2019, not the total market of it, right? Just how much is being produced every single year. Think about it the same as how much the Federal Reserve prints US dollars. So if we go up to the screen here, I'm going to give you the charts before I give you why the price of silver has been down for the past few years and why it's starting to pop off again. As I explained before, photography back in the 90s used to be huge and account for way more of silver. Now it only accounts for 3%. Back then, 7 point whatever tons of silver were being used for photography. Now it's 1,000. That's a decrease of like from 7 to 1, right? That's a huge decrease. Meanwhile, solar panels are increasing. Well, they've been a little bit stable, but we're going to expect them to increase a bunch with Biden and the EU's and the whole world's movement towards more renewable energy sources. This is only going to benefit the solar panel industry. So we can expect this to start slowly taking off. And that's going to account for a larger and larger and larger percent of the industrial uses of silver. So now let's go over to the price of silver starting in 2011 all the way to today, basically. Well, as you can see here, it peaked really high up, so like 47, and it's decreasing. It took like, let's call this the all-time low. Don't look at that. Let's call this the all-time low before it started to recover, right? That was mid 2015. And that's the thing with commodities. Commodities tend to be quite cyclic. So you see, the more you zoom out, the more you see like, okay, it was down for 10 years, then it was up for 10 years, then it was down for 10 years, up for 10 years. And silver is no exception, because depending on what the industry demands at the time and how much they mine, right? Sometimes they stumble upon a mine where it's really easy to extract a lot of silver from. And that's the same with anything that you have to mine for, as well with oil. Then, of course, you have a lot of cheap to find silver available, and it floods the market. As well, if they don't predict correctly how much silver they need to mine compared to the demand for the year, that also causes there to be an oversupply. And if you see where I'm getting now, in the past few years, especially in this region here, there's been an oversupply of silver, right? So that means there was more silver on the market than there was demand for, or rather, not necessarily that, but that if they had held back a little bit the supply of silver, they could have sold the individual units for more, right? So that's why the price has been depressed. There's been an oversupply starting in 2016 until 2019. And now, with all the innovation and push towards renewables and all that kind of good stuff, we're going to start to see actually a shortage of silver. And what happens when there's a shortage of something? Well, that means the supply is constrained, right? And we're as well going to have demand start to go up as more people start to see that the renewable stuff is actually cheaper. They're going to want to convert towards that. So demand is also going to go up a little bit, right? And that means actually demand is going to go up by a lot. And that means that the current supply just isn't going to be able to keep up. So what happens in that situation? Well, exactly what you see here. You can expect the price to start going back up. Now, with commodities, it's always risky, right? It's one of the most difficult things for me to wrap my head around, because when you have a company, you know how much they're going to produce in a given year. And if they reinvest that, well, let's say the company produces 10%, they reinvest 10%, well, then they should be 10% more valuable next year, right? With silver, and commodities, it's not that easy. You have to take in a lot of different factors in order to be able to value them correctly. So let me move on then a little bit to a deeper analysis about this oversupply. So as I was showing you on the graph, between 2016 and 2019, there was an oversupply of silver. And we saw the price go like this, hit 2016, stayed pretty low until 2019, and only in the past year or two has it started popping off again. Oversupply of silver, which weighed on the price and kept it down low. Nevertheless, the market corrected a couple of things, and now it's starting to go back up. So what were those things that contributed to it going back up? Well, a decline in mining silver production. So the miners realized, hey, we're just mining too much of it. We could make less of it, sell it for higher prices, and that's going to work out better for us. There's also a declining demand from the photography sector, which, when you have a huge sector that's making up a giant amount of sales, and that sector pretty much just disappears overnight like this, whoop, boop, gone. And now it's back. Just kidding. Photography won't be back, at least not digital film, for a while. And well, that's going to cause, of course, a shock to the market, right? If your main buyer all of a sudden just leaves, well, you've got a lot of product left to move. And one of the only ways you can do that is to drop the price. And as well, we talked about this before, that the demand for silver for solar panels is on the rise. So let's get right into the Biden effect. The year we're in currently is 2021. Biden has just been elected as president, and now he's acting president, right? So he comes out, he announces that he wants to reduce emissions from the energy sector to zero by 2035. That's in approximately 15 years. He plans to completely go away from fossil fuels and go completely into renewables. That's a crazy target. I wish him luck with that. I think it's very ambitious. I think it's the right move. The great thing for silver is that that's going to cause a dramatic boost to the demand for solar panels. And that is why we expect a shortage of silver for 2020 and beyond. You might be looking into this. You might be thinking, hey, all right, this sounds good for silver. I'm doing my own research. I think I'm ready to actually acquire some silver myself. Well, then you're going to ask me, how do I go about doing it? One thing you can do is walk into one of your currency exchange places or any market, or like a jeweler would probably also have this, and you can literally buy physical silver gold coins. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to invest in SLV, which is basically a silver ETF, and this ETF tries to track the price of silver, and it does a really good job of that. And the other way you can do it is to actually talk to your brokerage, ask them, hey, what other opportunities do I have to invest directly in commodities? And you would be surprised by how many ways there are to invest into silver. But if you just have a quick question for me, hey, I want to invest in silver, how do I do it? I would recommend just buying SLV stock, right? That's the iShares Silver Trust. And that's going to be good for you. So, as always, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys got a little bit smarter today. And soon I'm going to be putting out a video on why, or rather if, I'm going to keep some suspense there, if investing in gold is better or worse than investing in the S&P 500, and what my thoughts in general on gold are. If you're curious about what's down there, well, these are the articles of today. And thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one.